Jungle.
Welcome everyone to Touching Base. I'm your host, Eric Arnold. And tonight I'm going to be joined by my friends, Andrew Nau and Joe Olson. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing?
Salutations.
Good for a Tuesday. All right.
Good for a Tuesday, although once again, this will probably be aired later on in the week. Very first important question for you guys, as always. What are we drinking tonight?
I am tapping the Rockies tonight, actually, going with an old Coors Light.
Yeah, you're a Todd Helton, Rocky.
I back to the bourbon again this week. However, I forgot a glass or didn't run downstairs to get a glass. So
You're gonna do it. Do it right. Right on air. Everyone's gonna watch. Oh, boo! 23 people saw that. Are you okay? Did you black out? Like you look like you weren't feeling it.
Well, that's toasty.
I actually just cracked open. Going back to it, it's an oldie but a goodie. It's a Mully's. It's their tart. It's their fruit tart amp. So make comments as you were. My only worry is I think I actually set this sucker out and then put it back into the fridge. So it's going to be potentially very tardy. But we're not tardy. We're right on time. So tonight we actually have. Oh, I know.
Painful.
I want to take it back if I could, but I just can't. We're here now. I want to talk to you guys because there are a lot of things that happened this past week. We want to talk about Ryder Cup. We want to talk about some of the news that's going on in the NFL. We want to talk about NHL. The Caps finally had an exhibition game. So let's just go ahead right into it. And if we have some time, maybe we'll talk some Terps. But first, Joe, let's start with you. You're our golf guy. Ryder Cup happened this weekend. As someone who's mentioned before, I'm not a huge golf guy, but I kind of pay attention. But the Ryder Cup is something I actually genuinely pay attention to. I think I even texted you asking for information to steal your YouTubes so that way I could watch it while at work. If any of my coworkers were watching, I had a day that I was allowed to be in my office, and I chose to do that while I was doing my work. So I was working, I assure you, just as hard as ever. But the Ryder Cup happened. United States dominated. Tell us more about it.
Well, I'm going to assure all Eric's coworkers that when he asked for the YouTube login data, he was very quick to respond when I sent it to him. So I can assure you he was working as hard as ever when that day was going on.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, what an exciting event and what an awesome team event for the U.S. I mean, just a total domination. I mean, winning 19-9 overall, not losing a single session, in any of the 3 days, all four of the team sessions, and then the single session on Sunday. I mean, just 3-1, 3-1, 3-1, 2-2, and then just a domination through the singles on Sunday. Most points in a Ryder Cup by either side since 1979. Americans have kind of been on a slide, losing 3 out of the last 4 Ryder Cups over the last 8 years. And also just the environment there, not only coming out of COVID, but being on American soil, having 50,000 fans
In Wisconsin,
screaming.
wasn't it?
It was at Whistling Straits in Wisconsin, and I have a great connection that I know other sports talk show hosts have made too. But like DJ goes 5-0 in the Ryder Cup, wins all 4 of his team events and then his singles match on Sunday.
Yeah.
First person to do that since 1979.
He's
and
not
also
going against slouches, he's going against other pros.
Going against, some of the best players in the world, and also going back to Whistling Straits, which is where he infamously grounded his club mistakenly, about 10 years ago at the PGA Championship, and ended up losing that because of that mistake. And so kind of exercising the demons there a little bit. Yeah. I'm sure that felt good, and he's ironically, DJ is 32 years old, and he is the old man. He is the old man on the Ryder Cup team this year.
They should be good for years to come, right? I mean, everyone kept talking about the rookies. They kept saying, how they were dominant. I mean, now granted, the whole team was dominant, but they showed zero signs of being nervous about this event. I mean, I know that, some people got up in arms because they were drinking beers and stuff like that after they had already been told they didn't have to play anymore. We'll get to that maybe in a second. But I want to ask you, not just about this young team that's coming up. It obviously shows more potential than anything else. What does the Ryder Cup mean for you as a golf fan? As an American golf fan watching this, what is the Ryder Cup like? Is there an equivalent to another sport, or is this like something completely on its own?
I guess if you're going to draw a comparison, it would probably be to the World Cup, maybe an Olympic event or something like that. But to me, I mean, the U.S. and Europe are the dominant forces in golf worldwide. And to see, honestly, I think it's something that Americans kind of needed. They needed an American team to get behind. And if you watched any of it, gosh, every time they made a putt, every time that, there was somebody going up to the tee, whatever it was the players that aren't normally animated. Patrick Cantlay,
right,
normally like really subdued. Everybody's like getting into it, pumping up the crowd and everything like that. If you saw Jordan Spieth hit his shot where he almost like hit it off a cliff and then almost ran into Lake Michigan because
I did see that. Yeah. yeah.
I mean, that's just one of the coolest things I've ever seen, seeing the reaction to that. And honestly, to tie it all together, the sportsmanship on both sides too. Like, yes, it's U.S. versus Europe, but these guys play against each other every single week. There's a level of respect there that I think isn't probably equivalent in other sports too. And so it's just really, really cool to see that.
Are you including Bryson DeChambeau in this? Because he still comes across as a major tool to me every single time I watch this guy. I know that like they work things out and everything else, but him yelling at the judge, shocker, he had to be involved in that. Now, I'm not saying he can't just absolutely skull blast a golf ball, but Jesus God, that guy seems like just a huge, huge tool.
I mean, yeah, I mean, ironically, I hear that him and Brooks Koepka are like best buddies after the Ryder Cup. I'm sure that they had a couple of beers together after they won or whatever.
Probably with that judge. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Bryson seems like just an odd duck. I mean, there's no bones about it. I mean, he literally is like, I'm going to put on 30 pounds so I can just pound the piss out of the golf ball every single time. And it's turned him into. Yeah.
That's my strategy.
He hit the longest drive of the tournament was 417 yards by Bryson. And so, I mean, that's just like launching it out of a cannon. And so the fanfare involved in the Ryder Cup has always been what's drawn folks to the event. I think that it's awesome to see.
They were interacting with the fans a lot more too. I mean, they were getting beers thrown at them and stuff like that, and then chugging it on on the course and everything. Like,
I think one of the most understated things too was like, Sergio Garcia, who's like in his 9th Ryder Cup, for heaven's sakes. Like he was actually kind of playing the part of villain and enjoying it too. I mean, he's kind of taunting when he won his couple of matches for Europe and everything too.
Yeah, but he's done that before. He was supposed to be Tiger's big rival for a while. Remember that? I mean, that seems a lifetime ago, but yeah.
I'm sure that but like I kind of appreciated that. It added to the theater of the event. I mean, it has just a lot more kind of spectacle than other events do in golf. There's not normally roaring, screaming after every shot and everything.
It's not a team event normally, and these guys are playing kind of like almost like when we would play. I mean, obviously skill set way better, but like when we're all cheering each other on and laughing, like if we played the tournament together, I imagine it'd be something similar, where we'd be, competitive, but having a good time with it all. And just enjoying the event.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned the amount of rookies. I think the U.S. had like 6 rookies on the Ryder Cup this year. A lot of young guys that are in their 2nd or 3rd Ryder Cup. But I mean, they're going to be good for a long time. I think it will be really, really interesting to see how they go back to Europe in 2 years and respond, because the home course advantage is obviously a big deal. I mean, they're roaring every American shot, they're booing every European shot when they're at Whistling Straits last weekend.
And I mean, they're waiting too. Wherever it's going to be in Europe, whatever it is, they're just waiting for the cocky Americans to come over and start pulling that stuff over there.
Yeah, it's going to be in Rome in 2023, and so it'll be just a raucous crowd the other way. And so I think that's one of the things that people like about it so much, is that it is raucous. It is a big home course advantage, but also there is a level of respect because these guys like play against each other every week, and they are the best in the world, even if they're not wearing the same shirt that week. So
absolutely.
Hey, quickly, for someone that's very apathetic and pretty oblivious to professional golf, as I think we've touched on before.
We've definitely touched on it. I'm pretty sure you gave a list of things you would rather do than watch golf.
Yeah, I do one of them on Thursday. I have a root canal. Frame the U.S. beating Team Europe, Team USA beating Team Europe. Frame that for us in kind of common nomenclature. Is that App State beating Michigan, or is that
Joe had to
Oregon?
change the screen so he can look up what nomenclature
Oh,
means. You got him. You had enough of your S. Let's see if I have to admit him back in. Yeah. There are no words apparently. If he comes back in, we'll bring it to him. Oh, and he's back. Were you looking up what nomenclature means? Is that what you're doing? Oh, do we not have audio yet? Oh, you gotta turn the mic on. Oh yeah, there he is. Yeah. No, this is almost gonna be more entertaining.
He looks great though, for what it's worth.
Whenever he does hear us, let's just pretend. Let's just pretend that we can't hear him back.
No, that's not fun. Because when technology doesn't work the way it's supposed to.
I know, he's so frustrated too. He's like, oh gosh. Yeah, he laughed. He laughed. Hey, before he inevitably tries to get back on here, and I probably pretend like I can't hear him. Capitals. They actually got started. You're our hockey guy, our hockey guru. What's going on with the Caps? They just started. I saw they lost a preseason game. Nobody cares. But what? Tell me about the Caps.
Man, I had a glitch.
Yeah.
Jeez. Right when I was getting put on the spot too.
Yeah, you gave a great answer. I'm sure.
Yeah, we all heard it. It's fine.
By ditching out.
But yeah, there he goes. Yeah. Okay. Well, I was just asking, Andrew about the Capitals, but he did put you on the spot, so I want to give you a chance to respond. I don't even remember what the damn question was now, but
basically just trying to
frame it.
Yeah. Is this App State beating Michigan, or is this Oregon beating Ohio State?
No, I mean this is Oregon beating Ohio State. This is not like a large upset. I mean, these are all top 25 golfers in the world. I mean, this is just something where the U.S. hasn't come together like a team like this very much in the last 10, 15 years. And so to see it all come together, I think it's just really what we needed, especially on American soil.
For sure, I'm here for all of that. That's awesome. Okay, thank you.
All right, hockey. Tell me about the Caps.
Yeah,
frame
so say it again.
Frame it for me.
Very much more of the same of last year. Oldest roster in the game, and really no improvements personnel wise. A couple of
better or worse than last year.
Yes.
Okay.
It's gonna be tough to say, and we were talking pregame about how I claimed about this time or whenever the season started up last year, that the oldest roster thing really wasn't going to play too much of an impact, and I think that was I think we know now that's pretty far off. Injuries mounted up, right? Like the Backstrom,
and that was really it was more the injuries that mounted up as opposed to them wearing down as far as they were slow and that kind of good stuff. Now, granted, a lot of the teams they were facing are faster, but they thought it was going to be built more of a physical. I mean, they were a big roster. I mean, last year.
Yeah, I think it is a product of age. It is a product of guys, some wear and tear, right? Like Backstrom has had hip issues in his career, and he's going to miss some time this year. And every day we hear a little bit more about it, and it's starting to sound a little bit gloomier and gloomier. We found out the other day John Carlson last year cracked his patella, cracked his kneecap, and had to have it repaired over the summer. Things that hockey injuries are always so mysterious. So I do think some of those things took a toll on them and ultimately gave us what we saw. I think you have Anthony Mantha that came over last year during the trade deadline, who will have some more time to kind of gel with the new team. I think the guys are having had a proper off season to kind of rest and recover. Is gonna be helpful.
Have they come out with COVID protocols and stuff? I mean, are they going to be able to gel? I mean, last year was such an odd season the way they set it up. I mean, forgive me for not really paying attention to it, but what's different from last year to this year?
So fortunately for the NHL, there seems to be really high vaccination rate among players. Some of that is where the guys are coming from other countries, whether it's, in Scandinavia, Europe, Canada, right, where generally people take these things a lot more seriously than us hoodle heads. So
is it going to be an issue at all traveling from the United States to like other countries?
For people, well, the only countries I go to right now, Canada. For vaccinated folks, it's not an issue, but there's some cases where guys that aren't vaccinated aren't going to be able to travel to Canada. At least that's kind of one version of it. I think it's Todd Bertuzzi in Detroit isn't supposedly not vaccinated, and they're talking about him missing 12 or 13 games, whatever, when Detroit goes and plays at Winnipeg or goes and plays. This is Ottawa in the Central. I don't know. That goes into Canada. So there could be trouble there. But the Caps, they only really lost that. They ended up sending Brendan Dillon out in the trade. Made some cap space. But he was arguably kind of their bottom two pairing defenseman and didn't play that well. Zdeno Chara unfortunately was one and done. He is moved on.
Going back home, isn't he?
No, he's actually still on going to hang around a little bit longer at it. Age 74 or whatever he is. He's going to play for the New York Islanders this season.
But I mean, didn't he start his career with them though? That's what I mean.
Yes, he did. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. In that regard, yes, he did.
Going back before he started. Yeah, kind of booking the career.
Amazing. How does that team not have the oldest roster? What with all of those Devils that won in like 1995 or whatever it is?
Well, you got like Stevie Yzerman or something like that. That team. That was the Red Wings. But sorry, forgive me.
They have I think it's Travis Zajac and a couple of Devils that were like around when the Devils won the last time, which seems to be a long time ago.
Yeah.
So there's some holes for some young guys to step in. You're looking for Martin Fervardi. I always get that one wrong. Young defenseman, right shot defenseman, I believe, that's going to step in and could play some meaningful minutes. You got guys like Connor McMichael, who's probably going to stay in Hershey.
That's one everyone's kind of anxious to see, right? I mean,
he's gonna probably stay in Hershey.
Probably a year away.
Yeah. He's going to knock on the door for time, and if there's some significant injury or they're not making it work.
Let's be honest, there probably will be. At some point.
Hendrix Lapierre's already turning some heads in camp. I think he's only in his second year. You got a guy like Alexei Protas, who's
I know it's really early. Do you have any major predictions for this team? First round playoffs?
When half the league gets in the playoffs, I mean, they'll see playoffs. It's who they draw, how they're hot, how the goaltenders. The goaltending situation should be better this year. Those guys have some more time under their belts. It's hopefully Samsonov keeps his head screwed on.
They're not going to start a guy who's 75 years old in the playoff games to start.
No, chances are no. You would hope not. So it's the playoffs. You get in the tournament, anything can happen. It's about coming together. Like that team in 2018. Like I don't know that they were that good, but they just played right at the right times and came together at the right time.
Right.
Yeah. I have two questions for our resident hockey expert here. Regarding the Caps, we're talking about them as an old team. Yeah, he turns around as he's looking for his bottle of whiskey. Yeah, we're talking about the Caps, and when I think of the Caps, it's kind of like how you should have your 401k allocated when you're 50 years old, right? There's not a ton of risk, but there's also not a very high ceiling on how much you're going to get out of it too.
I hope you love that reference. Like I really do.
Yeah, I mean, if you're probably gonna be ahead at the end of the year, but I mean, it's probably not one where you're going to win big. Am I wrong about that? And if I'm not, like, where's the biggest hole you see on their roster going into the year?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think it is. It's safe, right? And I have a disagreement with that too, but generally I mostly agree, right? It's exactly how you said it. It's known commodities. It's known quantities. You're going to get a solid state of return. Your 6-7% return, whatever it is. You're going to get something that you like. It might not be the biggest thing that you want, but it's going to be something that you like. But yeah, I agree that it's not going to take it all. The biggest hole, depth scoring is going to be an issue still.
Where are they going to get it? Because last year they got some production out of the second and third lines, kind of unexpectedly. Stepped up.
The longer Backstrom doesn't play at a high level, the more trouble there is. Because he's a big component of secondary scoring when you can count on that second line to be almost as dangerous as your first line. And then you got a guy like Connor Sheary and Daniel Sprong and Lars Erler who are exciting and can do things, but it's like that's it fits and starts. And then you got Nick Dowd and Garner Hathaway on the fourth line and Carl Hagelin on the fourth line that, again, they're feisty, but it's like you can't really always rely on them to score or even drive offense sometimes. So it's about, getting those secondary guys. Your Anthony Mantha to have a really big year. TJ Oshie to stay pretty consistent. He's starting to creep up there in age. Wilson to take another step forward if that's possible. A guy like Lars Eller that can play that second center role, but like he's fine there, but over long stretches of time he kind of gets a little bit outmatched, and he's getting a little banged up already in camp. So secondary scoring is a big concern.
Do you believe in Samsonov to last the whole season and then maybe some playoffs?
Last how?
Health.
To be a top 10 goaltender, health, all the above.
Does it matter? Is it just a crapshoot at the end? You're just kind of hoping someone gets hot anyway?
It does matter. I think he can, because I think he is that level of quote-unquote elite goaltender. He has that potential. It's a matter of because he can make absolutely stand on his head kind of saves and let some stupid goal leak through. It's about getting in the right headspace to make those leaky goals the exception and not the rule. And you can almost count on one of those a game, just something mishandling the puck, or what are you doing right there, or at that particular point in time. And if I think he gets gets in the right headspace and can kind of focus, it's concentration. Not to stereotype it, but this is very much a Russian thing, right? You could say the same things about Kuznetsov, right? Where's your head at? What's your priority right now? If it's playing hockey and winning games and trying to, get too deep in the playoffs, they're both potentially elite level players. If they're concerned about, playing cards in the hotel rooms on the road and, going to the club, not that they're going to the clubs, but all these other different things, Kuzi's talking the talk coming back in the summer, and they didn't move on from him, which was a mild surprise for me. But I really want to see him kind of get his head back in the game and
Are you happy? We talked about this a little bit before. Are you happy with the roster, with the Kraken expansion draft and everything else? Are you glad? Just yes or no. You have to go.
Yeah, it's fine. I would have liked to have them shed a little bit more cap space and maybe get somebody that can contribute to the secondary scoring. I love Dmitry Orlov might be their best defenseman. And Carlson's up there obviously, but Orlov's a player that could probably get you some good value. I think he's got 2 years left. He's at 5.1 or something like that. I think if you could have found somebody, it's hard. I think had the cap not been constrained in the last couple of years, maybe you could have found somebody to take that on. And got some good assets back, and whatever. He's still a really good player, and he's going to contribute positively to the cap.
Get to the playoffs.
I think the roster is fine, and that was kind of my objection to the kind of the retirement fund analogy, which is still spot on. But you can talk about infusing youth into this lineup and moving some of these veteran players, but it's unless you're looking at the bottom six, how do you take who are you taking out of the top six, and that you're going to upgrade or be even with, right? TJ Oshie. He's getting up there. He's putting up 60 points. I guarantee you he's going to put up 60 points. Backstrom, no. They just re-signed him. Tom Wilson's supposed to be the next captain. You just got Anthony Mantha with a big contract and is another potentially really good goal scorer. I think you're fiddling around with the bottom six, which you can make an argument for, but I don't know. It's kind of this thing where it's it's an NFL comparison with the Jets and Denzel Mims right now. Denzel Mims, a former second-round pick from last year, can't get on the field. It's kind of a who are you going to take out thing. Now, that's a bad example because Corey Davis couldn't catch it. STD in a whorehouse, but with the Capitals, it's yes, you could infuse youth in that top six. You could, but
at what
you got to kick somebody down. You got to kick somebody down on the line or get rid of somebody and I don't know that you're getting. You might just get replaced.
It's going to have to be a young guy who forces it to happen. They're playing so well that you cannot afford.
If McMichael comes up and takes the third line spot at a camp because Eller's got the second center and he's
maybe you have to move him around the trade deadline or something.
He's got 20 spots, 20 points before the first of the year. You're going to keep him when whoever comes back, right? I think that's it.
Yeah. All right, fair enough.
Hey, for our host here, I don't want to steal the role of host, but I'd like to put our host on the spot for a moment. And so, if we've got the Caps kind of slated as a retirement fund at age 50, let's put the Maryland Terps football team as your 401k at age 25, right? That's something that's lightning in a bottle. You know, it has a ridiculously high ceiling. You might lose for a while, but in the long run, they're probably going in the right direction. And so they're 4-0. We're going to find out a lot about them over the next 2 weeks. Like, what's your assessment of where they're at?
All right, so we are year 3 into the rebuild of Mike Locksley. Okay, so this isn't just like an instant thing. I have an article coming out soon, and I was describing this as, you know, Maryland is going out and they're finally trying to hunt for some big game. And typically, if you're going to do something like that, you need time, you need the tools, you need the experience. The first year we saw Mike Locksley come out, he came out and he lit the world on fire, scoring almost 70 points a game in his first 2 games. They knocked off number 23 Syracuse, instantly got to the top rankings. I was at that game. I remember most of it. And then they got absolutely torched from there on out through the season. So I don't think they were quite ready. I think at that point in time, they didn't quite have the tools to compete with the Big Ten. Because once they got into that Big Ten play, it was just a different group. You know, they were too big. Last year, COVID year, kind of a lot going on. They brought in Tua, Artulia. They brought in another, top 25 class of recruits to go along with a previous year's top 25 class of recruits. I think it was actually somewhere close to like 15. So now those guys got a little bit more experience, being together, and they really didn't get a chance to practice together last year. I mean, like with all, we can't be around each other. We are around each other. We can't touch a football. We can touch a football. There's a lot of things kind of going on. And once again, they showed their moments. They had their games. They almost beat Indiana. But they also got the doors blown off when they opened the season against Northwestern. It was like 43-3 or something ridiculous. And honestly, it wasn't even that close. But they had avenged their Penn State loss. They had lost like 59-0 at home the year before, and then they avenged that loss and beat Penn State again. This is year 3, where now I think they're going to have the experience, they're going to have the tools, and now it's time. And I really think this is going to be a good test. But they've got another test right behind it in Ohio State. Don't overlook this. They beat a very good West Virginia team. People, are now kind of looking at that game as West Virginia went toe with Oklahoma, and Dan really should have won that game. They were right there. Oklahoma was the better team, but not that night. West Virginia was the better team that night, who lost. Then Kent State, I know, your golden flashes. I know that people are kind of, joking about that win, but that win, they played Iowa tough. They were only down by a touchdown, going into halftime of that game. And then Kent State also played, I think it was Texas A&M or something like that, and they were tough in that game too. And they just weren't there. They didn't have the athletes to compete. Maryland took care of Kent State pretty much the entire game. The entire state of Kent, they took care of. And then also, they got the Howard victory, but everyone's got those, a cupcake or something like that here. I think last week they had the number 1 ranked offensive line. They only allowed, I think it was like 2 rushes. The right tackle specifically, I think, was ranked number 1 on Pro Football Focus's, college right tackles in the entire week. Tulia is, putting himself in the Heisman conversation. 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. They've got 3 NFL wide receivers on that team. They've got possibly an NFL running back and possibly an NFL tight end. I would put their skill position, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, running backs, up against anybody else in the nation, including in Ohio State, including, in Alabama. I would put them in those same categories in that field because they are explosive. They are legitimately that good.
So I say that they're lightning in a bottle, right? Are they? But I know that they have a ceiling.
Their floor is a little bit higher. Okay, their floor is a little bit higher. In order for all those tools to work and all those skill positions, it always comes down to the line. They've got some. They're more loaded on the offensive line than they are the defensive line. I know that earlier the defensive line is still young. They have the potential to be elite, but they're still young, and I worry about them going against an Iowa team that's going to, quite frankly, it's not about statistics. Statistically, Maryland is ranked 5th in the country in sacks. All the stats are going to be thrown out the window because stats don't really matter in these situations. It's going to come down to the style of football is going to be very different. You're talking about this kind of, beforehand. Iowa being up by 14 points in the second half is much different than Kent State, much different than even West Virginia, because they are methodically trying to win 7-0 each quarter. And if they can win 7-0 or 3-0 each quarter, that's their goal, and that's what they're going to do. So if Maryland gets into a squeeze where they're having to play catch up, I think they're going to struggle. My prediction is I think they're going to be down early because they're not really they don't start very fast. I think they'll be down something like 10-3, 14-7, kind of like a 1, maybe 2 scores, 17-7, something like that. I could see them being down early in this game. But then what I expect them to do is I think they're going to bring the safeties down. I think they're going to bring Nick Cross down into the box. And I think they're going to try to force Iowa to go over the top. And if they can force Iowa to go over the top and they can try to, make it essentially big play on our side versus big play on your side, I think that's going to be Maryland's best bet. The linebacking core of Iowa is very strong. So I don't expect the tight ends. I don't expect the running backs to do very well. But I do expect the receivers to really show out this game. And if they get any amount of time, I think they can turn a 10-yard slant into a touchdown any play of the game. And I really expect it's essentially can they find lightning 2 or 3 times? I think they can. I don't know the depth. I think Iowa has a little bit more depth overall, but it's going to be close. I think this game, Vegas has it as 3.5, 4 points. Maryland's a different team at home. All the things kind of are aligning. It's what scares me. Like if this was not my team, a team that I'm not a homer for, I would probably look at them and circle them as a potential, upset pick. But the fact it is my team, I question where my heart is. But I actually think it's Parents' Weekend. They're coming in. It's a Friday night game. I know Loxton was kind of pissed off at that. It's going to be on national television. Not necessarily a good thing for them, but this is a different team. This is year 3. Apparently the players themselves are running the practices and holding themselves much more accountable. All the things are there. All the things you want to hear are there. And I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be exactly kind of the way we suspect. I think it could be close. I do predict Maryland winning this game. I actually do think that they'll win this game. I think the final score, I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be very close in the first half. I think they'll be down at halftime. Like I said, it'll be something like 17-7 or something like that. But then I think it's going to be a shootout in the second half, and I think we're going to get some
bold predictions here.
I think Maryland wins 31-27. You heard it here first. 31-27 Terps. In College Park almost burns on fire for the next 2 days. And then they get doors blown off at the Horseshoe the following week.
All right, so I got to ask you one more question, and then I'll shut up and let you run the show again.
No.
All right. So 2 weeks, they have Iowa at home, and then they go to the Horseshoe. Like 2 weeks from now, we're running the show. What makes you happy as a Maryland fan after those 2 games?
I don't know if it matters. As long as they don't get their doors blown off. I even care, Joe. If they don't get absolutely embarrassed on national television, I'll be okay with that. I'd like for them to win one of those games, preferably the Iowa game at home. The Ohio State game would probably be a bigger sell to recruits. It'd be a bigger sell to boosters, all that kind of good stuff. So 1-1, I think, is kind of a pipe dream. They're not winning both those games. I love them. I love them to death. They're not winning both those games. If they win both those games, I will break dance naked on this podcast, but that's not going to happen.
You heard it here, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go kidnap these. I'm gonna go kidnap the Ohio State football team.
Say it again?
I'm gonna go kidnap the Ohio State football team.
Yeah. Make that happen. Come here, boys. I got my bullets. So as long as they don't get nationally blown, they keep themselves credible. Because right now, what we're really talking about is the program itself is reaching a point where they've never been in the Big Ten, which is respected, and gaining that respect. I don't want them to lose sight of how important that is to keep competitive. And right now, they've got some eyes. They got some votes. They're 27th in the country. I think that's about right. If I'm being honest with you, I think they're about at 27. Maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower, but their ceiling is very high because of the explosive plays we talked about. They can beat anybody not named Alabama, but I think they're better than Clemson. I'll tell you that. We keep bringing them up just because of how bad they've been. But that's a bad team. Maryland's better than them. I'm not saying they beat Georgia or anything like that. I'm not saying they beat Oregon. I'm not saying they beat any of those top the elites. But they give them a game. They're going to make them know they played.
I love it. I love that you're behind your team. I also love that you're realistic. I think that there is a realistic chance they win both games. I think what they need to prove is that they need to win a grinded out 16-13 Big Ten game. That's how they are going to prove that they've made it.
I'll tell you what, that West Virginia game showed a lot, because that is a game they would have lost years ago. I mean, because that was a grinded out game, and they were able to stay in it. They were able to make adjustments. They were able to still use their big plays. That Kent State game, say whatever you want. Kent State played a very similar, you run, go over the top. Run, go over the top. And it wasn't anything fancy, but it works, to keep seeing ball games. We're essentially getting the elite level of that, I think, in this game. You're a Wisconsin fan. This reminds me a lot of how Wisconsin, used to play.
Thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
Whatever. I don't feel bad for you. Wisconsin's got a great program. I'd kill for that program.
They do.
But it's that same, they're going to win 7-0 each quarter. They're going to win 7-3 each quarter. At best, you win 10-7 or 10-3 or something like that. But they're going to win more than that. And by the time it gets to the end of the game, you're going to be worn out, because we're going to physically just pound you into the ground. And I think that's what Iowa's game plan is going to be. So
the draft community is really excited about Iowa Center.
Is that a fact?
It is a fact, Jack.
Okay. How excited? Is he going to be a Washington team? Are we picking in the top 5?
There's another losing team that also has high interest in the interior offensive line that will likely be picking out of the Washington.
There was a time where we said that they were elite. They were elite defense. I was on here wearing a fake gold chain, talking, how thrilled I was with everything. But honestly, I go back to, if you do everything right, you do everything. They did everything right. It just didn't work out. They did everything. They invested into the defense. They zigged when everyone else zagged. They were going to hire this coach. The culture's changed, all this kind of good stuff. And then the ones that you thought you could count on just aren't doing it. So I don't know if that's awesome. I don't know what that is.
If my aunt had testicles, she'd be my uncle.
Right. If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. Right. I also want to give a quick shout out to not the actual Mariners, but I want to give a quick shout out to the Southern Maryland T-ball Mariners, who are currently sitting at 1-0 on the season. For getting their first victory.
Boom.
Very impressive. Coach
on pace to go undefeated.
Say it again.
On pace to go undefeated.
Yeah, we're currently on pace to go 162-0. But I think they're going to cut the schedule down to about 8. But
it's been a lot of games for T-ball.
Yeah, but we had a couple home runs tonight, so I'm really proud of our team. Not nearly as proud as I am of you guys. Gentlemen, we have less than a minute. I want to rose up. I want to rise up.
Try to raise it
up. Whatever it is. Whatever.
At the Rockies.
Hit the Rockies. I want to watch Nau take a nice big swig of that Bullets again, because I've been actually silently watching you drink that throughout this entire podcast, and it took everything I had not to chuckle at you a couple different times. So when you take a pull and you realize
you get a hard no for that, Chief.
Well, I'll do it. Here we go.
Mazel tov.
You guys have a great week. See you guys.
Awesome. You too. Great on.